Hello there, everyone, and welcome to GamePoints episode 358. Your weekly little get-together we talk about recent gaming news. As always, your host, Stephen Brandon. Tonight, Diablo 4 sells bigly, and Spider-Man 2 looks to be huge if reports are to be believed. But first, before we get into any of that, I want everyone to know this is an audience interactive podcast. So if you're watching live here at Twitch TV/GamePoints, or later at any myriad of video hosting platforms, be they YouTube, Rumble, BitChute, etc., feel free to join in the conversation with any questions, comments, concerns that you might have. And of course, if you like what you see here, you know what streamers want. Likes, bits, subs, all that good stuff. First story that we have on today's docket right here. Diablo 4 is now officially the fastest selling Blizzard game of all time, and it officially came out today. Now, I know there's some wiggle room around that. In reality, it launched late last week, rather, for people who were willing to pay the extra fee, and for all those who weren't wanting to be shaken down by Blizzard, they got it late. That's how we calculate those here. But still an impressive feat to happen over only about 5 days or so. To put things into context, I believe it was something around 93 million hours of playtime played, according to this here newswire that they fired off, the little business blurb that they do to all the press outlets out there so they can regurgitate it, much like I am here right now. Diablo 3 is one of the biggest selling games of all time. So the fact that this is already outselling that means that this game is on track to become a big record breaker for sure. You don't need to get into all the Twitch talk down here, the doublespeak, how they all pat themselves on the back. All you really need to know is right there in the 4 days since early access started on June 1st, Diablo 4 has been played for 93 million hours, or over 10,000 years. The equivalent of playing 24 hours a day since the beginning of human civilization. That is quite impressive. Now, one thing of note, they didn't give you actual sales figures. That is somewhat concerning. However, if we were to go take a quick look at Diablo 3 sales, let's do that real fast. I should have had this up and running, but I didn't. My apologies. Let's see. Diablo 3 sales was then the fastest selling PC game, selling 3.5 million copies in the first 24 hours. So if this is the fastest selling copy by then, that means they've easily sold more than 3.5 million copies in 24 hours. Maybe even double that. You really don't know because they don't give you numbers. But it is going to be a lot. It is an impressive number. Diablo 3 currently, as of August 2015, so it's been many years after that, had 30 million copies sold. So if this is on the same trajectory, Diablo 4 will easily do 30 million copies. Easily. Impressive numbers. Which is one of the reasons why they're going so heavy live service with this one. They clearly want to jump on the Diablo 2, Destiny 2 train here, where they have a steady stream of content constantly coming out with new seasons. In fact, there's already 2 big expansions planned for it in this article here from PC Gamer. By the way, the link to this and all the stories that we talk about will be posted down below if you want to go take a look at them for yourselves. From PC Gamer, Diablo 2 has 2 expansions cooking already. Diablo General Manager Rod Ferguson gave a wide-ranging interview to Kinda Funny about the game's early reception and, while discussing the live service element, casually mentioned that the team is now working on not 1, but 2 expansions for the game. As an aside, once again, Destiny 2 feels like the template for this, so I wouldn't be surprised if those expansions were yearly. You would maybe have one this time next year in 2024 and then another in 2025, which they would add new zones, new classes maybe. They might even try to filter the classes in through non-expansion DLC, but considering there's going to be a good chunk of voice acting involved with that as well, I doubt that's going to be the case. It's probably going to be limited to the expansions. And from there, they might even add an extra act or 2 on top. And that's not counting all the different seasons that are going on as people continuously rush to max level throughout them. Back to the article itself. Ferguson said that the working process for Diablo 4 had taken account that the game's development is intended to be a marathon rather than a sprint, and Blizzard didn't want a situation where the game launched if a team who made it was burned out. Diablo 3, for example, had new content coming in and new seasons coming in all the way up until very recently, so I'd imagine they do have one of those 10-year plans for Diablo 4 where they continuously create new seasons up until the inevitable 5th one. From Ferguson himself. As I sit here, we're about to launch the main game. We're finishing up Season 1, and we're working on Season 2, and we're working on Expansion 1. We're kicking off Expansion 2. We're working on that now, and we haven't even launched the game. And, quote, Diablo 4 is going to be sticking around for quite a long time, and it has been surprisingly well received given all of Blizzard's woes lately. I've often said myself, no king reigns forever in relation to Blizzard because they used to be the top of the PC gaming space, and my have the mighty fallen over the past decade or so, with lukewarm receptions to many of their recent fares, the Overwatch 2 controversy, StarCraft essentially being once again dead, Heroes of the Storm getting unceremoniously booted to the side, and just general malaise over the studio itself as it's constantly bombarded by harassment and overwork claims and you name it, and they've gone through it lately. Massive turnaround over the past few years for certain as well, and of course the entire shadow of the will they won't they relationship with Microsoft as their Activision Blizzard merger got cock-blocked by the UK government. It's congrats on them for getting a win, finally, and a win that seems to be relatively problem-free. Now, I know some people are going to talk about the fact that console versions had some weird licensing issues at first, but they seem to have resolved those pretty quick. You compare it to the woes of Diablo 3 when it launched and where people couldn't even get into the goddamn game for a couple of weeks at first, and this is not only significantly better than that, but possibly one of the smoothest online launches I've seen in a long time, especially with how many copies this goddamn thing has sold, seemingly. So, congrats. Blizzard seems to have finally had a big win in their column, something they have desperately needed for a very, very long time. Let me know if you guys are playing Diablo 4 down at the bottom there. I want to know what everyone else seems to be having experiences with. I'm enjoying it myself so far. I'm somewhere in Act 2 playing my Necromancer around level 30 or so. Haven't hit endgame yet. That's going to be the real test of things in about a week or two or so. See how people are still playing it. See if the numbers have plateaued or fallen off of a cliff. To see what new content keeps getting rolled out. I think that this talks about, in this article, how Season 1 will be coming in July. So that should give everyone roughly about 3 weeks to experiment with the end game as it currently is, pop a few world bosses, and see what is in store for the future of Diablo. I'm going to be very interested to see how they go on with it, because I don't think their seasons are going to quite follow how they were in Diablo 3, a game that was really made before live services were a thing. It was more focused on microtransactions. Now everything is battle pass and new content and season passes and whatever you want to call your monthly seasons as these are now. Good on Blizzard though. Glad they actually have a win finally, and that people aren't getting fucked like I was afraid it was going to be happening. Moving on to our next story here. Spider-Man 2 sounds goddamn massive, and I don't know how I feel about that. This article here for you in Gamatsu. Headline: Spider-Man 2 map roughly twice the size of the previous game, character switching detailed. So, for those of you who played the first Spider-Man on on PlayStation, the map was decently large, although admittedly you can traverse it very quickly because, well, you're Spider-Man. You can haul ass across that map in a minute or two if you wanted to. The second one we've seen recently with the Sony Showcase that they premiered last week expands out into the suburbs a little bit. There's that scene where Peter's all venomed out fighting a bunch of cops in what looks to be a basement of a somewhat low-income area around New York City itself. I think it's Queens. I don't know the five boroughs, forgive me. But they're clearly leaving the actual island itself and going to more of the suburby areas of the city, which is awesome. I'm glad to see them get some different terrain in that area. When asked about the size of the map and how this is going to be worked, however, the creative director of Insomniac Games, Brian Inther, told Famitsu the following. We've added Queens and Brooklyn this time, so roughly speaking, the map size is about 2 times larger than previous titles. Since these two areas are somewhat smaller and residential, I think you'll find them different from Manhattan. I've prepared some unexpected situations we haven't done before, like a battle on the river between the two cities, so I really look forward to them. Okay, cool. But the question is, does twice the map mean twice the content? That remains to be seen. I'm hoping that they fill it out. I feel like the density to things in Spider-Man 1 was great. It wasn't a Assassin's Creed style, oh my god, this one little tiny part of the map has like 80 icons and you can't even see them because it's so clustered everywhere. I don't want that. But I also don't want the vast majority of this to be Mafia 3 style, where it's just barren between checkpoints. It needs to have decent amount of activities peppered all throughout. I don't want something too dense, but I also don't want to be wasting my time exploring an area that has nothing in it either. I do have faith in Insomniac, by the way. They have been making games for quite a while. They know what they're doing, and I think Spider-Man is a testament to their talent that they were able to make possibly one of the greatest superhero games of all time. And yes, I am counting Arkham Asylum amongst that. I think Spider-Man technically tops it, in my opinion, though you can probably catch me on a day every now and then where I reverse those roles. But it is good, is what I'm saying. At least I really enjoy it. Looking forward to this one. I have faith that they're going to actually do this right. And it seems like they're taking influence from another big open world game, in this case Grand Theft Auto 5, with their character switching. Going on to what game director Ryan Smith had to say. They confirmed that players will be able to freely switch between Peter Parker and Miles Morales when exploring the open world, though there are some situations during story missions where you have to control a specific character. Makes sense, of course. Much like in Grand Theft Auto 5, you couldn't play every mission as Trevor. You had to give it up every now and then to Franklin or... who is the third guy? I don't remember. It does not matter. To something that Ryan Smith said directly. There are things that are exclusive to a specific character depending on the content, but we're also preparing content that allows you to play as whichever character you like. While they're both Spider-Man and have some things in common, Miles is speedier than Peter, and they have their own quirks, so we hope you can choose your favorite character. It sounds like there'll be some things that are a little bit more suited depending on Parker or Morales, depending on what you're going through. If they have some of those races that the first one had, probably won't be as Miles, since he seems to be a little bit faster, more agile. If it's, say, a kill X number of waves of enemies before the timer runs out, maybe move to Peter, who looks to be a little bit more of a powerhouse based on the trailer that we saw. I am looking forward to this. It seems like their switching is going to be almost instantaneous, by the way, whereas in GTA, your camera zooms out and then zooms back in, and then you're close. Someone else took, like, say, 5 seconds or so to happen. It sounds like Insomniac here is really shooting to have it happen almost instantaneously. Be very curious to see how that happens. But if they were able to pull that off last generation, I can't see why they can't do it this generation. Spider-Man 2 believed to be coming out sometime later this year. I don't think we have an exact release date on it yet, despite Sony's recent showcase showing close to 10 to 15 minutes of the game, not giving us a release date. A little bit worrying there, but I think they're going to try to save it when some bigger stuff gets announced, which we'll talk about later today, to try to steal some of that thunder. Moving on to the next topic here. This one, I tend to have a little segment at the end of the shows about layoffs, but this studio really hurt, so I wanted to have it a little bit more of a main story here. Via PC Gamer, Firaxis hit by layoffs after Midnight Sun's disappointment and departure of iconic creative lead. Oh, that sucks. I love Firaxis, but this was to be expected. To the article itself. Civilization and XCOM studio Firaxis have been struck by a round of layoffs, Axios reports. Around 30 developers at the company have lost their jobs so that Firaxis can perform a, quote, sharpening of focus, enhancement of efficiencies, and align our talent against highest priorities. Which I'm pretty sure is just a hyper-corporate way of saying we need to spend less money. Absolutely agreed. The Marvel license isn't cheap, and Midnight Suns did not do gangbusters. Also, Firaxis, as much as I love XCOM, in reality, they still are just a one game studio, and that game is Civilization. It's no wonder why, it shouldn't be surprising why they announced Civilization 7 is coming not too long after sales figures from Midnight Suns came in, and not too long after Jake Solomon left the studio. In fact, one of the reasons I'd wager why Solomon left is because they looked at it and went, hey, this game sucks, you're about to get with layoffs. You want to fall on your sword? And I think he did. Back to the article. Naturally, Firaxis isn't blamed for anything particular for the round of layoffs, but it's not hard to see what might have prompted the company to start reconsidering its focus on cutting costs. Marvel's Midnight Suns, for all of its superstar power, was a commercial failure, and its studio recently lost one of its most recognizable creative leads with the departure of Jake Solomon, who headed that project. Essentially what I was saying before. Oh, this sucks because this means my dreams of getting XCOM 3 are pushed even farther back. A game that I know for a fact was in development, was confirmed by the NVIDIA leak that happened about a year ago at this point, if not more, and that I think was quietly canceled and its staff shuffled off to this. I really, really loathe the fact that we're probably not going to get an XCOM 3 after all this, that they're going to be all hands on decks on their big moneymaker Civilization, and they're going to drive that next Civilization into the ground. They are going to be cranking out content for it ad nauseum, because that is what Firaxis makes, that actually makes money. And we are entering the lean times, and it's, once again, not to sound like a drum, they're beating the same tune over and over again every week. It is going to get worse. Of course, my heartfelt feelings go out to those affected by the layoffs. I hope you're able to land on your feet soon. And to those of you who are still out there who are at a company that feels a little dodgy at the moment, please, I am begging you, start getting ready, start preparing to be laid off, because it is, once again, not going to stop. And in fact, if your company had a round of layoff already, you think you might be safe, still prepare for it, because some companies are going to be doing 2, 3, even 4 rounds of layoffs, if just not shutter entirely. Or, in the case of this next story here, get merged with redundancies pulled off. Via IGN here, Star Wars The Old Republic, you know, that MMO that BioWare made a few years, about a decade or so ago at this point, going third party as BioWare focuses on Mass Effect and Dragon Age. To the article itself. EA is nearing an agreement to move ongoing development of operation of the MMORPG Star Wars The Old Republic from BioWare to third-party studio Broadsword Online Games, IGN has learned. According to sources familiar with the matter, Broadsword and EA have signed a letter of intent, with the deal expected to be finalized soon as this month. The agreement would see Old Republic handed over to the current Ultima Online and Dark Age of Camelot developer Broadsword Online, which is run by former Mythic Entertainment co-founder and BioWare vice president Rob Denton, who previously worked on the Old Republic in the early days. That's good. At least it's going over to someone who's running a studio that has actual experience with the Old Republic, as opposed to just some rando company like Perfect World or something like that. Back to the article. Currently, 70 to 80 people are part of the core development team of the Old Republic. More than half of them are expected to move to Broadsword. Those remaining with EA would have the opportunity to look for roles elsewhere within the company, but may otherwise face layoffs. That's going to be 30 to 40 people, if you're doing the math here, that are very likely going to get laid off, because while 1 or 2 of them might find positions in EA, this is a perfect opportunity for that company to let some people go. And that's cold and callous to say, but it is. So, man, I hope Broadsword can absorb this. The Old Republic, oddly enough, is still running. They went free to play relatively quickly in their life cycle, but it's had a decent amount of players keeping it alive since then. Nothing spectacular, but enough to justify actively developing for it all the way until today, which I think has been running for about 10 years or so. I want to say the Old Republic came out in like 2011, 2012. So about a decade is a pretty damn good run for an MMO that's not called World of Warcraft. The Old Republic will, by the way, continue to see playing content updates, such as the upcoming 7.3 patch and the next PvP season, with more expected down the line. EA remain as the game's publisher, while BioWare focuses resources on single-player games such as Dragon Age and Mass Effect. And the fact that they are not transferring everyone left over to those projects shows that those games are in trouble, in my opinion. It should be, yes, please throw as much resources at this as we can to have it polished up as we can. I don't think that's the case. I think BioWare's skating on thin ice, and I think they're told, you will make this work within the budget we give you, or we just shut your ass down. Also notice the highly concerning lack of updates on both of those games. Now, I will admit, I am the first person to say, shut up and go away and come back when you have something. Don't give me these monthly little updates of, hey, we're working on it. But the fact that we don't even have anything at all is bad, in my opinion. The fact that we keep hearing rumors of Dragon Age 4 or Dragon Age Dreadwolf, whatever they're calling it now, being rebooted like on its 3rd time now, and they've never really come out to address that concern, is bad. And then we hear stories about how it's shaping up to be a Dragon Age version of God of War. No. Please don't do this to me, BioWare. And I get it. I'm that asshole fan that wants you to shut up and go away, but also still wants updates what's going on. But that is the price that you pay when you announce this shit far, far, far too early. And I get why you did it. You needed something as a distraction to say, hey, no, we got stuff. You remember Dragon Age? Well, we're making Dragon Age. Remember Mass Effect? Well, Shepard might be coming back. You like Liara, right? Well, there she is in this trailer. Please don't hate us. Which I get. BioWare has had disaster after disaster lately. Mass Effect Andromeda, Anthem. They had a whole bunch of resources poured into that Shadow Realms game that never materialized. It has been a very bad time. They relied on that, quote, BioWare magic for far too long. And now they're paying the piper, considering that that team is kind of a ship of Theseus at this point. Everyone that really made it click has gone off to do bigger and better things. So it really is just a name and name only at this point. I think they do have a few people who were related to the franchise, Dragon Age franchise, working there now. Their general manager is someone whose name escapes me at this moment, but I believe he helped work on the original Dragon Age. So they got some stuff there, but for the most part, BioWare ain't BioWare, and hasn't been for quite a long time. They really should just change the name to something else so they're not abusing that studio's legacy. As such, however, it is important to remember that just because something has a storied name behind it, BioWare, Blizzard, etc., doesn't mean that they are what they once were. People leave. People start their own game companies. People move on. And new people take their place. And those new people might have their own vision. Those new people might take a company and make it even better. Or those new people might just be there to cash a check. We don't know. Certainly in these two companies' cases, BioWare and Blizzard, it feels to be the latter. Although, once again, Blizzard does have a win so far with Diablo 4. Let's hope that BioWare can follow in their footsteps and give us something that reminds us of their past glory. That does it for the news. We do have 4 big events coming up over the next week or so. It is that time we normally would be having E3 running, but that fortunately has been mercy killed at this point. Now you have a bunch of independent showcases as well as the Keighley's. Well, no, not the Keighley's. That's the Video Game Awards, but Jeff Keighley's Summer Game Fest is going on too. 4 big shows that I want to mention this week, and you'll have a bunch of myriad smaller ones as well. First up, Capcom Showcase coming Monday, June 12th at 3 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. I'll be streaming at that time, so we'll likely roll over and watch what they have coming up. They are expecting roughly a 36-minute showcase with some of the games not suitable for children. So I would expect updates on Resident Evil VR. I doubt they're going to announce anything new related to Resident Evil, but we will see. Capcom 40th Anniversary. I would love to see something Mega Man related, hopefully, please. You'll probably see some more on Exoprimal, you know, what everyone thought was going to be Dino Crisis for a hot second, and then it just turned into that. And honestly, I'd expect a good chunk of this showcase to be devoted to the future of Street Fighter 6, which is either just released or is about to release. One or the other as of time of this recording. So I'd expect it to be very heavily focused on that. Also, maybe some updates on whatever they're working on with Monster Hunter World. I don't expect anything major from this, but I'll keep an eye on it to see if there's anything worth talking about next week. The big one happens this Sunday, and that's Xbox Game Showcase starting at 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, where they're going to be rolling out a whole bunch of trailers. They're promising that all of their first-party games will have at least some gameplay in it, as a direct attack on Sony Showcase, where they showed four console-exclusive games from Sony, and none of them really showed any gameplay other than Spider-Man. So, for example, oh my God, what was it? They started off with the Payday / Watch Dogs game, whose name is already forgotten in Concord. It's like Cash Money or something like that. Yeah, Fair Games. That's what it is. Fair Games. No gameplay on that. They showed Concord, no gameplay on that. Don't even know what the hell Concord is. Seems like Xbox is trying to maybe counterpunch Sony since they delivered such a weak ass blow. And for what I'm hearing behind the buzz on this, it sounds like it could be a banger. So Sunday, 10 p.m. Take a look at it. That's going to be immediately followed up by the Starfield Direct, where we get a little bit more of a deep dive into the upcoming Starfield. I get the feeling they're just going to go ahead and bite the bullet and say it runs at 30 frames a second because they're being real cagey about not announcing that. But I am curious to see what this game has. I'm not really that hyped up for it because what little I have seen on Starfield just reminds me of, well, Bethesda. Cool, all right, but we've been playing that same kind of game since Fallout 3. I'm eager for you to do something different. Don't get me wrong, I like more, but Fallout 4 was less. The jump between Fallout 3 and Fallout 4 was less than of a jump between Fallout 2 and Fallout 3. It felt diminished because it really did feel like they were just going back to that same well. A well, I might add, it feels like they're going back to again with Starfield. But hopefully I am wrong. We're not going to get too much from the actual blog post itself here, other than saying Sunday, June 11th, 10 a.m. I'll be at home watching that one. Really hoping that we finally get the lid blown off whatever the hell Microsoft has been holding back. They're teasing Fable. Hopefully we find out something more about Perfect Dark. Maybe, God forbid, we learn what their studios have been working on for the past few years. Xbox announced a bunch of games and have not produced many of them. Now is the time. They are on the ropes. Redfall was more than just a bad game when it came out. It was brand damaging. It was the first Xbox exclusive. It was the first big first-party game that they've had in a long time. And it was fucking Redfall. Think about that. And they have had a series of misfires since the new goddamn console launched. They need a win. They can't do what Sony did with their showcase and just kind of phone it in. They need it to be high. And I'm hearing that it's going to be, but we'll see. I was also told that the Sony showcase was going to be great too, and we all saw how that turned out, Spider-Man aside. Also coming up this week, Ubisoft Forward, coming out June 12th at 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. I have a few... There's never been a good Ubisoft Direct or Ubisoft Forward. They've always gone on too long, rambled about too much bullshit, and were just boring. They're going to take an hour and a half. I don't know how long it is, to be fair, but I feel like I wouldn't be surprised if it was an hour and a half to 2 hours because they fucking love their long directs, and it's going to be mostly around Assassin's Creed. You might see a little bit of Avatar Frontier. They do mention the Crew Moto Fest on there as well, but what, Skull and Bones maybe? There's no way they're going to give you an update on Beyond Good and Evil 2. I doubt they're going to mention the Prince of Persia Sands of Time remake, considering all the problems that's been having. It's too early for Far Cry. Well, we'll see. We'll see. Maybe. What was the name of that one? Was it Contraband? Maybe that. I don't know. I can't remember what that was actually called. But I am not looking forward to this at all. I will probably watch it just because I like to punish myself. Then finally, the best conference every year, because of how quick it is and how off the wall it is, the Devolver Direct, the return of Volvi. Now, I normally love Devolver Directs, but let me tell you something about Volvi. He is a shit mascot platformer that they're trying to rejuvenate in a clearly obvious cash grab on the verge of a recession because Devolver needs that fucking money. Volvi was at best a C-rate Bubsy. He doesn't come close to Mario or Sonic despite how much they keep trying to push him down our throats. And we all remember that disastrous time in the 90s when they tried to rebrand him as awesome and cool in the vein of Crash Bandicoot, but the motherfucker couldn't even rise up to Gex standards of platforming hero. Volvi sucks. and all of your nostalgia based around him, and all of you people saying, oh my god, Volvi's coming back, I love his giant hand, it's for gaming, you're wrong. Volvi sucked. Motherfucker couldn't even get a Nintendo Seal of Quality, and they gave those things out like candy. So please, just don't watch this. He is a trash mascot and deserves to be thrown back into the trash where he belongs. And Devolver, how dare you bring this horrendous orange piece of shit back into our lives? How dare you? I think that does it. That wraps things up. This has been GamePoints episode 358, and thank you all for showing up. I do try to stream this podcast about once every week or so come on by Tuesdays at 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time and join the conversation. If you like what you saw here, by the way, you know what streamers want. Likes, bits, follows, subs, all that good stuff. I do stream throughout the week as well. Been playing a lot of Diablo 4, a little bit of System Shock 2, and of course, we have our mainstays, Hearts of Iron, Stellaris that we go back to. Hearts of Iron, Stellaris, etc. Slur my words. That's what I do. You can follow me on Twitter at CapitalistPig21. There's a Discord server you can join, link provided down there, with all the articles to the stories we talked about today as well, so you can go up and read up on them on your own. This has been GamePoints. Until next time, I'm out of here.